Turning to our last reading of today, Ostrom provides a critique on the tragedy of the commons and presents her general framework for analyzing the sustainability of socio-ecological systems. I should maybe have stayed with Ostrom and colleagues 99, where her critique on the tragedy of the commons was formulated more clearly. They write, Harden's proposed solution was either socialism or the privatism of free enterprise. The starkness of Harden's original statement has been used by many scholars and policymakers to rationalize central government control of all common pool resources and to paint a disempowering pessimistic vision of the human prospect. Ostrom and colleagues argued that Harden's solutions overlooked the many examples where traditional group property schemes existed and provide examples where such group governance outperformed individual and government property. The Ostrom 2009 article seemed an attempt to provide some structure in explaining why group property and self-organization seem to work well in certain settings but less so in others. Ostrom adds a core challenge in diagnosing why some social ecological systems are sustainable whereas others collapse is the identification and analysis of relationships among multiple levels of these complex systems at different spatial and temporal scales. The paper also contains some remarks on the importance of mutual monitoring that are echoed by Steffens in explaining the success of individual transferable quota, and a support for the importance of leadership that is shared with Buchholz and Sandler. I also appreciate Ostrom's call for a general framework to be able to build on findings that span various disciplines, and her table gives a good overview of possibly relevant variables. But in the end, I remain slightly underwhelmed by the framework itself. It gives little detail on the interactions and the so-called core subsystems and little policy guidance. Possibly I miss how come this paper has become so popular. Close to 7,000 citations and counting. Did I miss some valuable lessons from this classic? Besides showing how well cited the paper is, I wanted to point out the cited by option of Scholar Google, which may serve you for a forward citation search for your essay. We have started this lecture with a quote from Adam Smith that described how the market can, as if through an invisible hand, redirect self-interested motives to serve the greater good. Arrow described in less spiritual terms why economists embrace markets on page 4 of his 74 article. We tend to regard it as a virtue of the system that the individual agent need not know very much. Indeed, the apparent modesty of the information needed is one of the most appealing aspects of the neoclassical model, both in the descriptive sense that individual decisions problems appear manageable for him and for the economist studying him, and in the normative sense that the system permits its members to spend their time and effort at producing goods rather than in unnecessary duplication of information. In other words, Arrow emphasizes that market systems are attractive because information gathering and provision occurs decentral in the form of prices. One may wonder whether the modesty of information with which most purchasing decisions happen is still desirable in our complex society, with impacts of consumption at times at the other side of the globe. The idea to introduce a market to correct for externalities such as emissions or virtual fish, while embraced by many economists, could in itself influence behavior. Consider the experiment by Falk and Scheck. The assumption of utility maximizing behavior may not be a bad departure for market interactions, but the experiment by Falk and Scheck illustrate that market interactions seem to make us more selfish. Paradoxically enough, this finding runs counter to the neoclassical assumption that preferences are formed over outcomes and not over procedures or forms of interaction. Falk and Scheck study the willingness to pay to save a mouse from execution. Participants in the experiment could choose between money from participating in an experiment or donate their show-up fee towards saving a lab mouse. The lab mice in the experiment lacked properties for an unrelated medical experiment and according to standard practice would be killed. If saved by donation, the mouse would serve the remaining 2 years of its expected healthy lifespan with other mice in some shelter. The instructions of the experiment included videos of the techniques that were used to kill the mouse. Let us now watch a video of these techniques. No, just kidding. In the individual control, participants had the choice between earning €10 or donating the show-up fee towards saving the mouse. The bilateral market treatment worked like a double auction, where a seller and a buyer could make counter-offers about the share of €20 in case of accepting killing the mouse. The multilateral market resembled the bilateral market, but had 7 buyers bidding with 9 sellers. In both cases, participants could send multiple offers. The number of saved mice was significantly lower for both market treatments. In the control group, close to half of the participants was prepared to save a mouse. By contrast, about 3/4 of the interactions in the market treatments led to the mouse being killed. Falk and Scheck summarized the following possible reasons for this difference. First, in the market interactions, responsibility is shared. Second, offers by others suggest social acceptability. Third, market framing possibly boosts materialistic and competitive tendencies. Because of shared responsibility and replacement logic, the authors had expected more mice saved in the bilateral market as compared to the multilateral market, but this difference did not show. This week, we have seen that neoclassical economics offers some insights into environmental problems with their understanding of market failures, such as externalities or with public goods. From the readings, we learned that global public goods and the concern for global commons have only increased. My review of the tragedy of the commons focused on our fisheries. On this slide, I wanted to make reference to the classical example of the number of sheep on the meadows. Obviously, this is not a sheep, it's a mollusk that looks a little bit like a sheep or sea bunny. We have made a start with assessing typical neoclassical policy recommendations such as Pigouvian taxes or cap and trade, and we have also highlighted the concern that neoclassical economics tend to ignore group governance schemes. Here you can find more details about the references used for this lecture. Next week in environmental economics, we continue with the assessment of Pigouvian taxes and cap and trade and look into different considerations relative to carbon pricing. Thank you for your attention. Are there any questions?